All right, welcome to the lecture. It's called Romantic Chess. I guess I could have done this on anything, but what it did for me is I wanted to revisit this battle in a specific position that happened in 1834. And I first saw this battle when I was a kid, and I thought they were both idiots. You know, like when you're a young kid and you look at some old chess game and you're like, these guys can't play. They have no idea what they're doing. And you know, recently the position stuck in my mind because they have this position that I'm going to show you they fought out so many times. I think somewhere around 15 games just in 1834 alone. They played this thing again and again and again. And I think what I guess I want to show is that it's incredibly modern what they were doing, and very deep, even though at first it looks ridiculous. Okay, first let me just preface with a couple words about this match. This match between McDonnell and Bourdonnais, 1834, I think of it as the first World Championship match. Some people don't, just because it wasn't called that at the time, right? But it's the first big match. They have several matches through 1834. McDonnell eventually dies, like during the match, kidney condition and stuff. They didn't even finish. But there's a very hard-fought match, and let me roll through the first moves of the first time they played this setup here. And let's see, I have to, it wasn't letting me, it wasn't giving me, is it because I didn't have number? There we go. Here, let's do Control 2 again. Okay, so this kind of setup is still seen today, and what we're going to do is we're going to go into what I would call an advanced French structure, right? So if I take it over here, just to a different, to a, let's see, totally different board, and I play e4, e6, d4, d5, e5. This is kind of the structure that we're going to be talking about today. And let me just say a couple quick words about my understanding of this structure. It's important, first of all, to see that Black has more time because it's his move. White has made a pawn move that isn't a developing move. And also that for that, White gets more space on the king side. And a very deep idea that we're going to see developed in this match is that White needs to understand, and this is so hard for people first playing against the French or even French players playing it, is that White's pawns are pointing this way. I'm not getting any good arrows, but they are pointing towards the king side. I can't get the arrows. And with that, what that means really, it's a good indication that White's space advantage and play should be on the king side. We call that his strong side. On the other hand, Black's pawns are pointing towards the queen side, and that's where Black should be trying to make some drama himself. We'll also see that play out in the game. And what that means is, since you have more space on the king side, White is freer to attack there and make weaknesses there because he has more glue, more piece play on the king side to compensate for whatever weakness he might make. Okay, so let's go back to the main game here. And obviously it started off as a Sicilian, but we're going to get this. Now, this exact position would be hard to arrive at in a French. It could happen, but Black would have had the opportunity to play bishop takes a3, which maybe he shouldn't even do. But anyways, we get this position. And the first thing that I want to say about it that's very modern, and again, it looked just so totally ridiculous to me when I was a kid, is the knight on c2. So when you are playing against the French, your basic idea is to hold down, first of all, your weakness, to prevent any counterplay against d4, right? Once you hold that square, you are going to say that the space advantage is going to be what kills Black. And what we mean by a space advantage is just like if you have less room to move your pieces, your pieces will knock against each other. They will have a hard time communicating in the back lines. And that's why, as another key thing in this game, it's really important that white doesn't trade any pieces. If you trade pieces, the lack of space is less of a big deal because the pieces aren't going to be knocking over each other anymore. Okay, so already, like, I'm sure it might look to you too, it kind of looks ridiculous what these guys are doing, right? It might look just like, what are these guys doing? Okay, so here we go. Snip, snip, bishop b4. Okay, interesting question. White could take on b4, bishop d2, or king f2. Well, any thoughts about what black should do? Any first intuition, or excuse me, what white should do? All right?
Take on b4.
Okay, and why do you like that?
Because if you play bishop d2 after you exchange the bishops, we can take on b2.
Uh-huh, okay. Any other thoughts? Okay.
Just play bishop d2.
Just bishop d2?
Block the bishop.
Uh-huh.
Either bishop d2 or
Bishop's not playing.
Okay, well, here we go. So now you have a sense of what the next move, the radicalness of the next move is just incredible then. And it's very, very positional. King F2.
I knew it.
It's a very positional move because if you take on b4, the problem is not like, it's over for white or something after knight takes b4. But what you have done is you started to trade pieces. And think about that bishop on b4. In a lot of ways, it's his best piece. But where is it going to go? If it goes to e7, it'll block the knight going back to e7 and other pieces, right? So already it's kind of a piece that's just hanging out in limbo. And let's just say this is very difficult for white to pull off because look at the black queen and the king, right? There are real problems in that position for the guy. Okay, so bishop d7, fine. And here's another amazing. Oh, any ideas? What should white play?
Maybe bishop e2.
Bishop d2?
Bishop,
e2, you said?
yeah.
So what's the idea there? Just to develop?
Just to develop and then maybe play a3 later on.
Uh-huh. Okay. In the back? All right. Okay, so remember what I said, that the part of the hard thing for people playing white in the French to understand is it's about space and it's about your need to create drama on the king side. So check this move out. Absolutely correct. It looks ridiculous the first time you see it, but it's absolutely correct. And let's just think about this for a second. What white is saying is my rook on h1 is going to be developed where it is. And if that rook is developed, then the bishop is developed too on f1. Maybe I'll move him later, but essentially he's already doing a job on f1. And he's saying the weaknesses that I'm creating on the king side aren't that big of a deal because black doesn't have any force on the king side, right? There's no way, for example, for the queen to get at the king. Now, of course, should you be nervous about something happening like the center exploding? Absolutely, right? You should definitely be nervous. Okay, so let's keep going. Takes, takes, castles. Black is playing totally normal moves. Any ideas for white? Let me show you. King g3. Correct. This is 1834. And it's funny because I think when, like, the title of this lecture is called, like, Romantic Chess, right? And right away that conjures up this image of swashbuckling tactics And this guy McDonnell, for example, had previously played Captain Evans, who created the Evans Gambit. And that is like what I think of when I hear the word romantic chess. That's the kind of thing I think of. But this is deep. This is deep because and I find as a chess teacher, I find one of the hardest things to make people understand is the space advantage is a big deal. But how to play it it's hard on a practical level because you have to really be thinking about all of black's pieces and how you are pushing them back in a box, right? So ultimately what white is trying to say is that I'm going to take away all of the squares for your pieces, right? And my king is safe there because that's my side of the board. All right, let's play a couple more moves. Knight f5, king h3. Most people, I mean, when you first see it, you're like, well, I'm going to get mated on h3. Well, he's not getting mated. Okay, now, think about it from black's perspective now. You've got all your pieces out. I've been in this situation, by the way, as a French player, and it's like, okay, I've got all my guys out, and now what am I supposed to do? Right? What do I do now? What's the next move? The bishop on b4 is doing nothing. The queen on b6, I guess, is doing nothing. And maybe a thought is bishop e8. It's always a thought to bring the bishop around. But definitely, very soon, white is thinking about playing g4 to push back. Okay, so black decides bishop e7. Bishop d3. And now what we have to say is, right, when you are playing against the French, your ultimate hope is to smush him back, and then if he castles short, we're going to try to... And I just want to pay homage to the knight on c2. That thing was moved at a very early date to put it on c2, and he's really the hero because he's stopping all of the counterplay against the white center. g4. Knight takes, bishop takes, g5. Well, the guy's got to take, and now queen h5. Oh man. Now, this I think was ultimately unsound, but you can feel the beauty of it, right? Because white is saying that everything is going according to plan, where I am playing on the king side and everything's working. I became very suspicious of that, and I think the answer here would be for black to play h6, and I know the reason he didn't do it was he was afraid of queen g6, right? Because then you're threatening mate on h7. But on queen g6, then you have rook f3, bam, and then you just take on d3, exchange sack, and you're fine. Okay, but let's look what happened. Bishop h6, snip, check to the miserable king, and let me just get your gut impression. Do you think black is lost here? You don't have to calculate anything, just what's your gut impression? No. All right, we're going to come back to this. I want to show you guys now a very modern game in the French that I've played myself. So here it goes. You guys are going to be, it's pretty amazing to think that what you just saw was from 1934. Knight d2, knight f6, e5, knight d7, f4, c5, c3, knight c6, knight df3, c takes, check to the miserable king, king f2, queen b6, h4, castles, king g3, f6. And this position is actually like, let's call it high theory. Like this is something that GMs now think about, like what to do with white. And if you're a white player and you've thought about it, you could be very dangerous here. right? You could be very dangerous because, you know, you're playing for mate. All kinds of moves have been played here. King h3 is one of them, you know. So it's kind of funny just to think that we're playing the same patterns, you know, that they were playing so long ago. To put it in, I just want to put it in a modern context. A key idea here for black is that bishop d3, what you can do that's very clever is you can play snip, snip, takes, takes, and knight takes. And this is very difficult for white now because the king truly is in a mess. And the simple intention is to move the knight on e5 at some point and play e5, getting the bad bishop, turning the bad bishop into a monster. Okay, but I want to leave that and go back to the game. I just wanted you guys to get a taste like how incredibly modern all the ideas that we saw in the game were.
Who were you playing in that game?
I had that game, that position was me against Alexander Ivanov, U.S. Championship 2008 in Stillwater, before it came here. Yeah. Okay, yeah, white to play. I think bishop takes h7 is the end of the world. No way you're going to live after that. We're taking everything. Instead, white played takes. I think black has to. Okay, black has to play, I think, rook f7, queen e7, and here he misses a beautiful opportunity to win, and plays rook g3, and it's kind of like he has some of the right ideas, but not all of them, because after rook g8, there's no way to do the fancy trick. Whereas, if he had played rook, what is it? Rook g, either rook g4, I think, or rook g. Wait, let me just make sure we get it right. Queen h7 takes, king takes, and now rook g4 or rook g5, followed by king g2, and it's the end. Okay. Oh man, that's the romantic chess. Yeah, and it's telling that these guys, these minors over here, aren't working out at all. Okay, now let me show you where it gets interesting. That is the list that you see there. And that is all the same year, 1834. This was some variation of the position we're talking about. And even when they change the move order a little bit, it always ends up in the same idea. So they were just hammering each other again and again and again with this position. Let's do another game. And that game, that first one, Bourdonnais did win. Let's do a second one here.
Jesse, I'm sorry,
yeah.
I had a malfunction. Could you start this game over from the beginning?
This one I just started?
This one, yeah.
Can I start right there?
Boom, thank you.
Okay. So yeah, this is another game, and you will see that it is very familiar to the first one, very similar to the first one we had. And we're just doing the same thing. Imagine, they're just playing the same moves over and over again. Bishop d7, h4. In the last game, there was a check on b4. And this time, knight f5 is played. King f2 anyway. Right? Black can do all kinds of things, but he plays h5. And what white does is also you see in modern French, let's call it theory. g3, king g2. And again, the idea is that black is going to be run out of space. Now, I want to note that in this whole series of matches, I think Bourdonnais won like 3 more as black. And I think part of the thing to realize about it there is it's a position where the following quote applies, that white is better, but black has more chances. what I mean by that funny quote is that it's black who has the opportunity to really blow it open at any point. And accidents are waiting to happen for white. Whereas white, it really has to make sure that nothing is traded. Following move is very enlightening. A3, beautiful move. Beautiful move. Bishop E8, B4, beautiful move. Now, I want to take us back and show something very important to, let's call it, modern chess. The following thing probably you've seen, and maybe you thought it was outrageously weird. This is the advanced French, and one of the surprising things here is that most people who are just starting out want to do things like bishop E2 or bishop D3 and then castle short. It's playable, but it's kind of the wrong idea because the king, it's not so much like you want or need to castle right away. Your king, you have more space, so ideally you shouldn't be the one getting mated. But here's the idea I wanted to show that's very modern that we just saw in that game. A3. Now black can do a variety of different moves here. Let's say knight H6, and now B4. And let me talk about this weird idea. This is going to force something like this. The idea is really, I'm going to say, defensive in nature. It's very paradoxical to me, honestly, where what we're saying with this B4 move is that, first of all, it's paradoxical because that's his side of the board. And here white is making all these demonstrations on his side of the board. But what A3, B4 does is it slows down any attempt for black to get at me on the queen side. It's not so easy, for example, to play moves like knight A5. And if you ever play A5, well, then I can play B5, right? And again, I'll shut things down over on that side of the board. And the other clever thing is on knight F5, white can play bishop B2. And in the same way that the knight on C2 was the hero, the bishop on B2 is trying to do the same role here, where it's, the idea is the same. We control D4, and we're going to grab all this space, and then we're going to smush him. Let me show, I could show a bunch of different things here, but I had this position as black against GM Shabalov, and it went like this: H4, bishop D7, and then Shabalov just said H5. He's just, I'm just going to get some space over there. That's my side of the board. My king's not in any danger. We're going to hang out, and very soon I'm going to smush you with G4, right? So very enterprising play, and it's very interesting because when you count, if you're a tempo fiend like I am, who loves to count tempi, well, black is up 1,000 tempi. But if I get smushed back and my pieces are pushed to nothingness, that doesn't matter how many tempi. It doesn't matter how many times they've moved, right? And so I feel like even today, actually, when you think about chess and also what AlphaZero has done, the idea of space is really interesting. And let's just say something dogmatic. When you play E5, you are actually giving black more center squares, right? You don't control any center squares with your pawn on E5, right? Whereas my pawns on E6 and D5 both control center squares. So E5 is not about the center, it's about space. And it's complicated and a very hard thing as a practical matter to play with. Okay, so let's go back. And where am I here? Yeah, this is us. And I'm going to do this fancy trick that I've been taught where I go Control 2 and I get rid of the notation. Like I was saying, it is very difficult to play with space. And here, white makes a big mistake. It's not easy, actually, just to find a move. I think moves like bishop b2 would make sense here. White instead played b5, and I'm going to call this a horrible mistake. It's actually a horrible mistake. Any idea why this is so bad? Okay?
You're giving him the C5, C4.
Right, or another way of saying it is you're letting the knight on c6 have life, right? And that's precisely what happens. And it's really important to see that when you're a French player, you know, you're getting smushed all around, but if you can get some play on the queen side, oh man, life is a joy. My mounts are pointing that way, and a lot of times your king is on the king side, but still you need drama on that side of the board before his initiative starts going on the king side. Why is knight e3 not the happiest move? Because he's trading, right? Bishop g6, good. Bishop d3, snip, snip, and then bishop e4. Beautiful, simple play, right? The bad bishop has become the good bishop, and the knight will go to c4 someday. And now the terror has happened, where the white king will be weak. So this is why I wanted to show this game is particular, because it shows the dangers of playing with space, where if the pieces get out, they're angry, and your king is truly just sitting there. The rook on d8 is activated, takes, queen b5, and now he's just trying to survive, but it's clearly a losing battle. Very simple play from black. And yeah, this is just textbook now with beating white. Outside pass pawn, the knight is covering d5, fully blockaded. The dark square bishop is poor. My bishop is good. Very textbook, beautiful play. Thank you very much. And then he resigned. Okay, let's do another one. It's amazing. Now here's one McDonnell finally wins. I'll do my trick. Bishop d7. You know, it's funny, when I first saw these games too, I was like, my intuition was, you know, this is back in the last millennium, right? My intuition was, these guys really thought they knew the truth, and here they are playing all these dumb moves. And I really didn't, you know, I don't know, I was an IM or something at the time. I had no idea how deep this was. A3. It's incredible the attitude, I feel like you got to have to play moves like A3 and B4, right? This incredible sense of confidence that what you're doing is somehow correct. King F2, H5. And we're starting to smush him here. Notice that the knight on G4 isn't the strongest dude. But even here, it's not easy. Notice that this time he does not play B5. A4, very nice. So here we're getting the full demonstration of the power of space. Good move. When you've got trouble, this is the kind of thing you want to do. This move, by the way, this G5 thing, is something you see in a lot of French games, especially by Morozevich now these days, to crack open the position. There's many different things white could have done, and I'm not thrilled with what actually happened, but let's still look at it. A5, B5, snip, snip, and I think that's what he missed. Now, we're going to see that it's still very interesting for white, but I wanted to, remember in the first game I showed, there was that variation with knight takes d4. Same exact idea. Black collapses the center, and now who knows what's going on, right? B6. It's a mess, obviously. Knight takes. Game's still going on. Check to the miserable king, g3. Now this is a little bit messy, these next several moves. But let me just play a couple moves and say that that is better for white, and the reason is that the black king is worse than the white king, and the two pawns, h5 and d5, are weak. So one thing that's surprising about this is that the level of play here of the endgame, really pretty amazing. Now we take the pawn, and black wasn't able to find any play. And there it's all over. Yeah, very high level, a very high level of play. Okay, let me X that out. Close that one. And all right, let's do the next one. Bishop d3. Okay, so you can see now that white is trying something new. And this idea as well is common now. I think there's a variation in the Sicilian that goes like this, and oh God, I'm forgetting the guy's. I think it's called the Bonin system. Could that be right? Anyways, this guy Jay Bonin, who's famous for playing the most rated games ever, I think was the first guy to come up with this idea where you stick your bishop back there, and then you play d4. Actually, to my memory, it's funny because Joel Benjamin, right upstairs from here, played me with a similar system 2012 or something like that, just up there. Yeah. And it's a little bit hokey because the bishop on c2, it wants to be a beautiful piece there, and it does look pretty good, but it's ultimately a potential weakness, and it's not clear that it's such a genius on c2. And it took some time, obviously, to do all this stuff. But okay, this was the idea. And you can see how white felt good about this position, right? The king isn't nearly as exposed as before, and you're getting a lot of the advantages that you had in the last position. I think a modern way of playing this for black now would be to take on d4 and then play knight b4 to hunt the light square bishop down. Why? Because you want to exchange some stuff. Knight g4, a3, beautiful. Same idea, same idea. Let me go on another excursion just to, let me find I have a free board over here, just to show another version of this idea. So this will hopefully not be too weird for you all. But in the King's Indian, one of the things, and it took me, even though I've seen these openings all my life, it really did take me forever to realize that the King's Indian is a mirror image of the French. How did I not know? And let's say some obvious things. The genius about the King's Indian is the pawns are pointing, the black pawns are pointing to the king's side where the king usually lands up, right? So even though if it were a French, the pawn would already be on c5. Here he's going to play for f5, right? But the idea is the same, and the reason black can spend some extra time with things like knight e8 is because precisely the white king wants to be on the king's side. Okay, I just wanted to show this one idea. So let's imagine there's many different ways to play against the King's Indian. I just wanted to show one idea. Knight a6, g4. What I want you guys to see is that it's the same idea as what McDonnell is doing against the French. Instead of it being a3, b4, it's now h3, g4. And in this position, it looks like we're preventing f5 because we can play gf and rook g1. And that's kind of true. But the darker truth of it for black is maybe I'll just move my knight on f3 and then play f3 myself. Like that position that we saw at McDonnell. And that way, what we're saying to black is, you can play your pawn to f4, just like in the reverse situation with the French, you can play your pawn to c4, but I am holding the line on the king side and just preventing you from moving and then trying to play for space in the same way McDonnell did. Okay, so here we go. a3, king b8, b4. I think it's so amazing that the guy doesn't feel the need to develop. Snip, snip, bishop e7, knight c3. Beautiful. These same ideas are in use today. Rook. This is a little controversial, but it's hard to totally know what to do for black. Knight a4, knight c5. Beautiful. And this particular exchange, if black takes it, has drawbacks because that's his good bishop, and you're going to allow me to play bc. So I would say this particular game has already gone white's way. Snip, snip, g5. Beautiful chess. This is the way to do it. You have, and it's not about attacking the king. It's about breaking down the center pawn chain. Now, what should white do? Should he play g3? It's dangerous because h5 might happen, but it's a thought. h3, h5. These guys could play, right? These guys could really play. This is beautiful. So the situation from a strategic point of view is pretty simply stated that black has to crack the center, because if he doesn't, then his pieces are going to be worse and rook b1 is going to happen, right? So h3 is, if it's not, it's a very, very precise situation right now, right? And my instinct would be g3 as white to hold it all together. Go ahead.
Why does he not want to play h4 and black takes just close up to h5?
h4 is interesting, yeah. It's definitely scary too because you've made some weaknesses there, right? And in fact, I guess if you wanted to, you could play h4 here too.
Yeah.
Yeah. I kind of like your idea, and like with what we are seeing in the King's Indian and on the Queen side too, it's a similar thing where we just want to stop the drama. King g1, simple move. Now there was a very interesting question. It's like, well, even if it was your move, white, do you really want to take that knight? Maybe you don't, right? Snip. He doesn't. Probably didn't go his way here, right? Oh. It didn't work out, did it? We've seen all this before. But white won that one. Clearly some mistakes, right? So one of the things we're seeing is that the strategic plans on a very high level, but a lot of times the tactics actually are what separates some of the modern players, right? Because this position right here, I think it's safe. I'm going to call this lost for white, because you're just going to get killed. And knight e5 didn't actually do any favors. I'm going to, just as a guess, I think bishop e8 looks good, and queen d8 looks very good too. Both those moves make a lot of sense to me. Okay, let's go on to the next game. It's amazing how many we got here, right? Same thing. You can tell once they get their mindset on an idea, right? they're not gonna change. Okay, so A5, and you see this in the modern French as well, where sometimes black plays A5, and yeah, it makes sense. But A3 had two purposes, right? It wasn't only to play B4, but it was also to keep your pieces out of B4. For example, on CD, and like knight B4. So there is, white gained two things with A3, and black gained one thing with A5, which was just to stop B4. B3. Here, white is really going to have to be clever in finding a way through. And in principle, I really like what he does here. Bishop E3, castles, knight D2, fc8, H3. This is what happens now. What are we doing? We're playing for mate. Let's go, right? Let's go. G6. And now, well, there's a lot of strengthening moves, right? And in contrast to a lot of the earlier games, the knight on F7, the only thing it's really doing now is keeping the white pieces out of G5, like the white knight. That's all it's really doing. So it's not as nearly as effective. Rook G1. The guy was right. I mean, it's amazing. Like, this might not work out, but if he doesn't do it, he's going to get totally squished. So it's a very strong practical sensibility for him to try. Snip. Boom, look at that. I kind of wonder, like, in this position, did he miss it? Maybe. But then we have to ask, well, what else should he do? Even if he didn't miss this thing. The thing I really don't like about this for white is that now the black knight is activated, whereas before it was simply stuck on F7. Right? So in this position, I want him to do something else. But it's not that easy because our D4 is hanging. For example, GF might come. But the simple thing that he could do is even just sit on it for a little bit and play like bishop D3, and if GF, just bishop F2. We don't have to gain that pawn back, right? We want to play ultimately both for mate and to say that we really can't have the pieces coming out. That last variation, by the way, is wrong, and it's kind of instructively wrong, because imagine bishop D3, GF, bishop F2, the knight E5 trick works again, because the bishop is hanging on F2. Right? So maybe you got to do something like rook G2, GF, and bishop F2 to hold the thing. Notice the bishop on C2 is funny, right? Because it's going to get looked at by the rook on C8. And that was actually the same thing happened in the Benjamin game that I had many years ago upstairs. Okay, let's do another one. Same thing. Now you see this, we saw this already in the last game, that black is putting up this defensive barrier with F5. And another interesting thing about thinking about it in terms of the king's Indian is, imagine the pawns on, white has pawns on C4, D5, and E4 instead of this structure. And what Fischer did a lot of times, he would play C5, which is the analogy of F5 here, with the notion of just, I'm going to sit, right? I'm going to sit and prevent a breakthrough. So similar notions here. And the brutality of this is black's pieces are very active and the white pieces aren't out. F5, thank you very much. I am breaking through because the white pieces are not sufficiently mobilized, right? And you see a lot of young players playing against the French, they'll do this mistake where they want the pawn break, right? Because they've seen in some books some crushing victory with the pawn break. But if your pieces aren't involved, it's not going to work. Total mess, but black is coming out on top. Okay, let's do another one. These are men of principle. Right? They are men of principle. It's funny, I'm a French player, but every time I find myself rooting for white because he's the one playing with the very interesting and new ideas. Even now I feel like when Alexander Ivanov is one of the players I've faced who it's not this variation, but it's this similar idea where you play you put your pawn on f4 and you just play for a real space grab. I like it because it's it feels very new to me, even though it's from 1834, right? Not too many people are willing to give up their development like that. G5. And I tell you, this move, it still exists. It's very much still around right now. Snip, snip. Beautiful play. Beautiful play. The rook on c8 is touching the bishop. And honestly, I liked his first plan better than this bishop c2 thing. And all of black's pieces are kind of going to come out now. He's doing fine. Yeah, black's better. Simple chess now. King g8, beautiful. Bishop c6. This is what my friend Josh Friedel calls the angry bishop, or the angry piece. And it's kind of like a way to understand it is, if you've got playing against some bad piece, it needs to be put in prison. It's being put in prison. But like any prisoner who gets out, they're going to have a lot of resentment and anger towards the broader community. And that's how this bishop is feeling right now when he gets out, because it's so violent when all this stuff starts opening. Yeah, the end. That's like the French dream right there. This is over. Okay, let's stop and go to the next one. Oh, I actually skipped one. We don't have to finish these, by the way. I just wanted to give you guys a taste of what this position, how deep it was. F5 again. Men of principle. Okay, so now H5, just stopping it outright. And this can happen a lot. There's a lot of modern positions where you get this kind of thing. And beginning players will often offer a draw here, or soon, because they'll say to themselves, well, I can't break through on the king side, and I can't break through on the queen side. You have a question?
Try to go for rook e1 and then bishop takes f5.
Interesting. Yeah.
Some players play rook a2, and then they plan on playing rook b2, and then they're gonna play for b4 break b.
Sure, and on the rook on a2, when you think about white's minors on knight b1 and bishop c1, they're not only undeveloped in themselves, but they're pissing off the rook on a1. He's upset about it, right? So rook a2 and swinging over is definitely a very modern idea. Check this out. Rook e1, someone said that, right? g6, bishop e3. And that's nice because now the bishop is protected, so the dirty trick with g5 isn't going to work. Rook a2. We got it. I'll call that a modern move as well. The knight is just probing, and he doesn't really want trades, but he'll take the dark square bishop because that's the black's best piece for sure. Knight f7, but I didn't like that one. See? So you can see in the position like this, I definitely think white is better, but I know as well from personal experience, you get to a situation like this, and it's really pretty hard to know like what to do, like what's the plan. I think for players stronger than myself as well, it's like you get here and you know you have your space advantage, but you don't know what to do. And then the problem is, from a practical perspective, is when that starts happening, well, that was a huge improvement for black, because the knight on h6 was completely terrible. And a powerful idea, there's a book by Gelfand that came out, I think it was last year, something like that. He has 2 books out now with Agard, and he's talking about positional chess. And there's this really deep thing that he says there about space, which is actually, I think it's quoting an older Russian book, but that a space advantage becomes a liability when you exchange, the more pieces you exchange. And the word that he uses, probably some Russian word in the original, is capacity. So like there's a certain capacity for in each position for the pieces. And if we imagine if black traded off the bishop on d7 for any of the white pieces, doesn't matter, you can choose one, then you can see that white is the one with the weaknesses. The weakness on d4, the weakness on b3, right? So he needs to keep the pieces on the board. And just that one exchange is making everything so much easier for black. Beautiful. Thank you very much. So that's the nasty kind of tactic that's going to hit you with the stupid bishop on c2. And if my advice would have been move that guy before to d3, like when we did that knight g5 move, a simple building move would have just been, let's just keep it easy, guys, and just play bishop d3. We're in. This is very standard endgame stuff now. Little bit of mistakes from both sides here, and obviously it's white now who's got the better of it. Okay, let's do at least one more, and then we'll call it a day. As you can see, we're not getting through to all of them. That's okay. I didn't intend it. They're playing around, you can see, with the same ideas. They're refining it. And they've both kind of got a sense of the dynamics of the position, and both are trying to get a little bit of an edge with just how it happens. h3, b3. It's amazing that it all happens the same way, right? Bishop h5, beautiful. And what you see here is that Le Bourdonnais, through this match, has come himself to understand a lot of dynamics. And any French player will tell you, if you can get that bishop on a square like h5, you're doing really well, because you're going to get that guy off. And it's not just, of course, that it's the bad bishop, but the space thing is the truly big deal. I didn't like, actually, that he didn't trade it off immediately. And there it is. What's beautiful about that is he missed his chance. He missed his chance to trade, and now he got squished. Close to lost, I guess, right? What are you going to do? All the pieces are terrible. This is a great game to end with. Takes. Queen h2. No counterplay. And that beautiful rook. Beautiful move. Look at that. There's other moves, of course, but it's just so simple, right? Control the strong point. And let's talk a little bit. This is a good point to talk about space. Look at the knight on e7. It doesn't know what it's doing. It's in the way of the pieces. It'd be great if that guy were just gone. Whereas white has all this space to do stuff, and here he comes. This guy's amazing. Look at this. Bam. He's a genius tactically. Look at that. Boom. And now think about it. Now the knight on e7 is working, and the bishop has to be dealt with on g6. Oh, what a bummer. What a bummer. So, white needed a preparatory move, but he got slapped with that. The easiest thing in the world to miss, right? Who would think about knight takes e5? Bam! It's still not totally over. I think we're winning, right? That was a little messy. Could have gone either way. But this is going to be done for. Beautiful. Yep. And it's all over. Okay. Any last questions, thoughts before we end? All right. It's been a pleasure. And I guess to me, I'm glad to me, this lecture was like the opportunity to revisit that position. And those games really are an interesting window into how in a pre-computer age, long ago, where they really didn't have anybody before them that was that good, for them to find these ideas, especially even though McDonnell got the worst of it in this position, I feel like the ideas that he brought were so modern and deep and dangerous, honestly. Like, they're practically so hard to do, and we saw that in the match. Like, I think he could have done, he deserved much better. But like I said, in these positions with space, same thing with the Benoni. A quote applies, white is better, but black has the chances. Because he's got the counter punches like knight takes e5. That if he can find them, they will be there. It's so easy to make a mistake like knight h4, and hard to know where to put the pieces, how to keep them caged up. So I'll end with this thought that space, it's the final frontier. All right, thank you.